On 12th of June 2023, the Ugada Assembly of Heads of State and Government, having considered the situation in Sudan, established a high-level IGAD mechanism of 4, the Quartet, to engage in an effort to resolve the situation in Sudan. I am delighted to convene this first meeting of the Quartet today. In this regard, I welcome the members as well as the representatives of the two parties in Sudan. I also note and wish to thank all the partners that have joined us at this meeting. Pursuant to our decision in Djibouti, our Ministers of Foreign Affairs convened on the 19th of June this year. There has been a number of engagements aimed at securing a cessation of hostilities and commencing dialogue at various levels. During this period, I have also undertaken consultations with a number of neighboring countries, including Egypt, Eritrea, Chad, Central African Republic, as well as the African Union Chair, the President of Comoros, and of course, many hours of planning with my brother, Prime Minister Abiy. In all the instances, there has been a strong emphasis in support of the IGAD effort to end the conflict, address the worsening humanitarian crisis, and facilitate engagement in an inclusive political process that restores civilian governance to Sudan. The situation, ladies and gentlemen, in Sudan is grave. As the conflict continues unabated, we are witness to its devastating impact on the people, on Sudan, and on the region. To date, the number of displaced individuals have surpassed the 2.9 million. More than 2.2 million people are internally displaced, while over 640,000 have sought refuge in neighboring countries. I strongly condemn this senseless violence, the brutal attacks on civilians, including women and children, and the extensive destruction of property and infrastructure that is threatening the nationhood of Sudan and spurring uncertainty across our entire neighborhood. The atrocities in Darfur are alarming. The targeted interracial attacks are particularly concerning as they steadily spiral into a humanitarian catastrophe. Our meeting must address this unfolding situation. Critical is the need for an immediate assessment of the security and humanitarian situation with a view to ensuring that action is taken to protect the civilian population. While the crisis in Sudan continues to escalate, the response remains inadequate. In spite of the various challenges on the ground, it is incumbent upon us and the international community to scale up assistance to the affected populations. Given the negative effects of the crisis on the ground throughout the Horn, the Red Sea, and the Sahel, humanitarian assistance should also be extended to the neighboring nations with a particular focus on the vulnerable groups, including women, children, and people living with disability. I am happy that Martin Griffiths is in our midst today, and hopefully he can work with the region to urgently scale up humanitarian operation. Despite several initiatives to silence the guns, including the Jeddah rounds, for which we as a region thank the United States of America and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the conflict, however, continues unabated, threatening to fragment the Sudan. We must not allow such a tragedy to happen. As we all know, violence begets violence. Our meeting must call for the immediate cessation of hostilities. Failure to do this, we must also consider the next steps, including measures to protect lives and guarantee humanitarian access. Our mechanism also has a mandate to undertake concrete steps in support of an inclusive civilian Sudanese process towards sustainable peace. Our meeting needs to pave way for an unconditional ceasefire that facilitates unhindered humanitarian access and ensures protection of civilians, stops loss of life, destruction of property, and critical infrastructure, and enables the people of Sudan to access public services. Secondly, the structured commencement of 3 pathways towards conflict resolution and the restoration of the voice and aspirations of the people of Sudan for a democratic transition. And I recommend as follows. Track 1, establishment of safe humanitarian corridors. 2, mediation between the leadership of SAF and RSF so that we can stop the war. And number 3, commencing all-inclusive dialogue aimed at restoring Sudan to democratic governance. I believe this approach reinforces the search for peace and will allow progress that lays a firm foundation for a peaceful and stable Sudan. I appreciate efforts made by the Ugada heads of state and government, both collectively and individually, as well as our partners, notably the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for standing in solidarity with the people of Sudan during this crisis. We cannot fail in this endeavor. I therefore look forward to our engagement, providing a roadmap towards a lasting and sustainable peace in Sudan.
It is almost 12 weeks since intense fighting erupted in the Republic of the Sudan between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. We're gathered here today to take stock of developments in this unfolding crisis, which continues to deeply concerning as time passes. We also come together today to point a way forward that will stop the current devastation and clear a path towards attaining durable cessation of hostility in the Sudan. Hostilities that worryingly began in densely populated centers of Khartoum have now spread across the country, triggering a number of related incidents. We are witnessing the internal displacement of more than 2 million people and more than 500,000 fleeing to neighboring countries. Widespread looting and crime against civilians is being reported due to the ongoing violent conflict. The immediate humanitarian situation itself is quite dire, while the future of the country and that of its great people is greatly threatened. Excellencies, regionally, the consequence of a protracted conflict in the Sudan will be grave for neighboring countries. The Horn of Africa is still coping from the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, from repeated droughts and climate change-induced problems, as well as from the effects of the Russia-Ukraine crisis. The conflict is set to further fuel the threat of terrorism within the region by thriving on the weakening governance and security system of the Sudan. Many illegal non-state actors vying to exploit the current instability will aggravate an already shaky situation for the Horn region and the Sahel. Hence, the continued instability of Sudan is without a doubt a great threat to our region. At the global level, the appetite for and focus on the Sudan crisis is distracted by other competing crises. Therefore, it's incumbent upon us and the Ugada to take the lead in resolving the conflict in Sudan, in concerted effort with the African Union and the wise people of the Sudan. Our gathering under the auspices of the Ugada during its 14th ordinary session provided some momentum towards resolving this crisis. While it may not be a perfect process and face some challenges, it is nevertheless the most viable option for parties to the conflict to utilize to their benefit. The well-being of the people of Sudan and the stability of this great nation needs to be the guiding light for both sides. A zero-sum approach to this delicate situation will inevitably lead to mutual destruction and the complete obliteration of the Sudan. Surely, no side in the conflict wants this. Ethiopia continues to strongly believe in the capability and wisdom of the Sudanese parties to come to a peaceful resolution, so long as external actors are not involved in fueling the conflict. We reiterate that multiple, simultaneous, competing and sometimes conflicting peace initiatives needs to be avoided. Alignment of other mechanisms with existing regional initiatives is of paramount importance. Ethiopia encourages and calls upon those in conflict to open a direct channel of communication under the patronage of the peace process quartet formed during the Ugada Assembly of Heads of State and Government before the situation spiraled further out of control. As neighbors and sisterly countries with intertwined fates that are destined to grow and thrive together or decline into the abyss, I add my personal voice emphasizing to both sides that now is the moment for reasoning, the time to put one's self-pride aside and come to the table. Any later, and all parties to the conflict become complicit in destabilizing the entire region. In conclusion, I strongly believe you are all leaders who would like to deal with hope and not complete despair and destruction. The way forward should not be stonewalling every effort proposed to overcome our predicament. As you all know, we are in a very difficult situation. We should look for a way to resolve it, not to create obstacles. We shall therefore seize this occasion to come up with tangible outcomes that will pull us out of this crisis. We owe it to the people of the Sudan and to the future of our region. I thank you.